Heaven, How I Got Here by Colin. Chapter 6. Darkness, Noon.
What in the world just happened? Did I black out? No. 1 minute the sun glared down on us, and the next we were plunged into complete darkness. Not slowly like on a stormy day, but instantly, complete darkness. We went from midday to midnight in a moment. It was the scariest thing that I have ever experienced. This was no eclipse. Eclipses don't last that long. God turned out the light. Why? Now that I'm in heaven, the answer is so much clearer. Though even now, this mystery causes me to worship. Back then, on the cross, I only had a few pieces of the picture. Like every good Jewish boy, I had learned about the Exodus when God delivered our people from slavery in Egypt. God commanded Pharaoh to let my people go, but Pharaoh refused. So God sent a judgment on Egypt, a plague in which the river Nile turned to blood. Once again, God commanded Pharaoh, let my people go. Pharaoh still refused. So God sent a second plague, and the story continued with God sending judgments and Pharaoh hardening his heart. After 8 plagues, God said to Moses, stretch out your hand toward heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, a darkness that can be felt. Moses did what God had said, and Egypt was covered with darkness for 3 days. Imagine 3 days of total darkness. Nobody worked. Nobody went out. The whole nation came to a complete standstill. That got Pharaoh's attention, and he said he would let our people go. But then he changed his mind. God warned Pharaoh about the last and most terrible plague, that the judgment of God would come on the firstborn of every family in Egypt. So at midnight, God struck down the firstborn in every family. Finally, Pharaoh, whose evil had brought this judgment on his own people, relented and let our people go. Every Jewish boy knew this story. That's how I knew that God had turned out the light before, and that this was a sign of his judgment. On the cross, I suddenly found myself surrounded by the darkness I learned about as a child, the darkness that came over Egypt, the darkness that was so thick you could feel it. My first thought was that God's judgment must be falling on the soldiers who had struck and nailed Jesus, or maybe on the people who mocked him, or on the leaders who had condemned him. But that didn't happen. All of them slept in their beds that night and woke to continue their lives the following day. The judgment of God was falling on someone else that day, and now I know who it was. Jesus, the Son of God, the firstborn, was about to die. Jesus himself was coming under the judgment of God. The crowd had been quite sure that they were on God's side, and that he would affirm their condemnation of Jesus. And if they were right, trusting Jesus would turn out to be the greatest mistake of my life. My head spun with questions about what just a few hours earlier I had come to believe. Then Jesus' astonishing cry broke right through all of my questions. My God, why have you forsaken me? I felt a gut-wrenching anguish as these words echoed through the eerie darkness. Had God abandoned Jesus? This terrified me. I had put my trust in Jesus, and he promised paradise to me. But if God had forsaken him, what hope was there for me? My new faith was being stretched to the limit. When doubts crowd in and you find yourself in darkness, go back to what you know about Jesus. That's what I did, and it got me through. I didn't know much about Jesus, but it was clear to me that his suffering was a travesty of justice. That is why I said to the other thief, we are receiving our due reward, but Jesus has done nothing wrong. I rehearse this truth to myself. This man has done nothing wrong. Why would a man who had done nothing wrong find himself under the judgment of God? Why would a man who had done nothing wrong be crucified on a cross, the most hideous method of death ever devised? In Jewish law, the death penalty was administered by stoning. But for us, the death of an evil man was only the beginning of his troubles. After death, he faced the judgment of God. Our people had a striking way of reinforcing this solemn truth. After an evil man was executed by stoning, his corpse would be fixed for the remainder of the day to a tree. The fact that the man's body was not immediately laid to rest signaled to the entire community that after death there was a great judgment in the presence of God, and that this man had now passed into that judgment. This is why our scriptures say in Deuteronomy, anyone who is hung on a tree is under God's curse. And here was I, with Jesus, hanging on a tree. The fear of this curse had led me to ask Jesus to remember me, and to my astonishment, he had promised me paradise. As a thief condemned by the law, I knew that after death I would face God's judgment. But Jesus gave me his word that I would be in paradise. So where did my judgment go? I now know the answer. And the more I think about it, the more astonishing I find it to be. The judgment that was due to me fell on Jesus. The crowd was sure that Jesus was under God's curse, and in a sense they were right. He was under God's curse. But the curse did not fall on him for his own sins. He had none. He came under the curse for the sins of others. He endured my judgment so that I could enter into his reward. For most of my life I had neglected God's word, but even so I had learned enough in my childhood to have some sense of what was happening in the darkness. Jesus, the firstborn, was laying down his life. He was placing himself under the curse that would have been mine. Trusting Christ in the darkness seemed as wise to me as trusting him in the light. Now that I am in heaven, the faint light of the truth that I drew from the scriptures has become wonderfully clear to me. And once you see what was happening at the cross, the scriptures will become wonderfully clear to you as well. God tells us what he was doing for us through Jesus in that awful darkness. 1 Corinthians 15:3, Christ died for our sins according to the scriptures. 1 Peter 2:24, he himself bore our sins in his body on the tree. 2 Corinthians 5:21, God made him who had no sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. Isaiah 53 verse 6, the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. Isaiah 53 verse 5, he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was upon him. All these scriptures, and many more beside, point to this one marvelous truth, that God has found a way to reconcile sinners like you and me to himself by coming to us and bearing sin for us in Jesus Christ. Even here in heaven, I still can't get over this. My sin was laid on Jesus. The guilt of my theft, my blasphemy, my godless, selfish life was lifted from my shoulders and transferred onto him. He bore my sins. They were laid on him. More than that, he took all the sins of every person who would trust in him. He carried their guilt and judgment in full. The cumulative weight of this is unimaginable to me. Only Christ could have borne it. And this is the reason why he was pierced and crushed. It was for sinners like you and me. Without Jesus, I would have carried my sins into my death and emerged on the other side to face the Almighty. All that I endured at the hands of men would have only been a prelude to what I would have suffered at the hand of God. But Jesus carried my sins into his death so that I should not carry them into mine. I suffered the judgment of men, but through Christ, all that he endured in the darkness, I was saved from the judgment of God. That's why I'm in heaven today. And I hope that one day you will join me. But in order to join me, you have to be joined to Jesus. Faith is the bond of this living union with Jesus, in which all that is his becomes yours, and all that is yours becomes his. For Christ, being joined to you meant bearing sins and enduring the curse in that awful darkness. For you, being joined to him means that your sins are forgiven and your condemnation is removed. So here's my invitation. Believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. He is the Son of God. He bore sins, he saved sinners, and he is able to do this for you. Don't put this off. Some people say I trusted Christ at the last moment, but the way I look at it, I trusted Christ at my first opportunity. And that's what you should do. Trust him now. I reached out to Jesus and asked him to remember me when he came near to me. Jesus is near to you now as you're listening to my story. Ask him to save you. Trust him to save you. He is ready. He is willing. He is able. And if you come to him, he will never turn you away.